Hi there, I'm Diane Chaplin. This is Cello Tuesdays, first Tuesday of each month. And this month I am celebrating Women's History Month with a program by really wonderful women composers. I have a couple reminders. First, Portland Cello Project is going to be on tour in March and April. March, we're up and down the Pacific Northwest, down into Northern California and Nevada, and in April we start and do pretty much every town in Montana, and then we head east to Chicago and Indiana. You can go look at the schedule on the Portland Cello Project page. If you do come to a performance, come say hi to me. I would love to get feedback from live human beings who've actually seen these broadcasts. And I know that a lot of people talk about, live music versus recorded music. This is very much live music for me. I know that I don't have an audience of warm bodies sitting here looking at me, but I'm really aware that you are watching this, and it feels very live to me. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for listening. I know that there's a lot going on in the world right now, and whether you're listening as I'm doing this live or whether you're going to listen to this later, I just want you to know that I really appreciate you being there as an audience. Okay, so the first work I'm going to play is by a British composer named Imogen Holst. Holst, you might recognize that name, she was the daughter of Gustav Holst, who is really renowned for especially his giant work, The Planets, but he wrote a lot of other really amazing things. And Imogen was trained as a composer, as a pianist, she was a dancer. She was actually at one point trained as a conductor, and it was said about her that maybe she'd become the first female conductor to really break into that as a career. But alas, like a lot of women in the earlier part of every time, in the earlier part of the 20th century until now, she was not able to fulfill that musical side of her career. Instead, she did a lot of administrative work. She helped her father with his music, and she became Benjamin Britten's assistant and, in fact, a co-director of the Aldeburgh Festival in England. So she really worked in the music field, but it wasn't until 1964. She died in 1984, so 20 years before her death. When she was a little on in years, she decided to go back to try her hand at composing, and she wrote this piece for solo cello. It's called The Fall of the Leaf, and it is based on a work from the Fitzwilliam Virginal book, which was a book of a collection of keyboard works from the late Renaissance time. So this particular book was compiled in the early 1600s. The composer of this composition, The Fall of the Leaf, was Martin Pearson. And so you will hear at the beginning and at the end of this work this very evocative, beautiful tune from this Renaissance keyboard piece. And then Imogen Holst makes three kind of variations, three movements that are all strung together that are based on this theme. So this is The Fall of the Leaf by Imogen Holst. So the next piece I'm going to play is a piece by the Chinese-American composer Chen Yi. I played one movement of this suite on the January program, which was the New Year's Around the World program. It's called Jingu Suite. She wrote it in 2020. And it is a suite of 4 movements that describe something about the folk culture in Tianjin, China. Chen Yi was the first woman to receive a master's in composition from the Beijing Conservatory. Now she lives in the US. She teaches at the Kansas City Conservatory. But she's also a visiting professor in Tianjin. This movement I'm going to play today is the first movement of the suite, and it's called the Ning Gardens. And the Ning Garden is a very popular kind of tourist attraction in Tianjin. It was restructured and renovated about 12 years ago from, it had been a plantation and it had fallen into ruin, etc. And now it is this beautiful, just your stereotypical but gorgeous Chinese garden. Very peaceful, many paths for walking, beautiful trees, beautiful topiary, beautiful statues and structures, water features. And so I think she captures a lot of that in this piece. I think you can sometimes hear water flowing, you can hear birds chirping. And I think just the overall pace is one of very leisurely walking through the Ning Garden. This is by Chen Yi. So we're going to move back to England for a piece by the British composer Liz Dilnot Johnson. She's very, very active in England. She has a really kind of big following of many, many, many groups, orchestras, chamber music groups in England play her music. And she's not very well known here, but now I am bringing her out of the woodwork. I'm going to play a piece called Reflections, Dances, and Fantasias, and this is a really interesting piece. She wrote this piece to be a flexible suite. So the full suite lasts a long time. There's like 27 movements, little movements, but what she wants the performer to do is to pick and choose different movements to play, not necessarily to play the whole thing at once. She asks you to improvise. There's some jazzy things. This piece is written, I'm not sure how it relates to a lot of the rest of her oeuvre. I know that now she's writing pieces that have like difficult subject matter, if you will. For instance, she just wrote a piece that will be played, I think, in England very soon, that is called When a Child is a Witness, a Requiem for Refugees, which is celebrating those who seek and offer refuge. And she wrote that before we started having Ukrainian refugees, as we are currently having in the hundreds of thousands, and very, very timely to be addressing this subject, I think. This piece that I'm going to play is similar to the other British piece, is based on an older work, and it's very loosely based. You won't be able to find a lot of this, but this is something by Hildegard von Bingen, the 12th century mystic and composer, female composer. It's a work called Ave Generosa, which is a work for voice like that you do in a church service, a plain song, a chant kind of thing. So I'm going to show you these couple of ways that Liz Dilnot Johnson uses little bits and pieces from the Hildegard von Bingen piece. So I'm going to play a little bit of the beginning of the Ave Generosa. Notice that this interval keeps happening in the cello piece, and this is an interval that starts almost every single phrase in the Ave Generosa, and the way it shows up in this Reflections, Dances, and Fantasias is, for example, like this. Which I think you can totally hear those two notes. However, it also shows up in ways like this. So those notes that I was just playing, if I play the outline of this, it sounds similar, but the way it gets disguised in this piece is like this. So there's all this extra, somewhat atonal note stuff around the core of this medieval tune. There's only a few times that it does something that scattery. Most of the time it's very tuneful, very dancey. Some of the descriptions of how one should be playing are things like cheeky, manic, sexy trills, and I like all the very colorful imagery that the composer has put into this piece. So I'm going to play the second part of this Reflections, Dances, and Fantasias, most of it, because I can choose not to. Oops, I have to put my mute on my cello. Hang on. I'm going to play most of of part 2 of Reflections, Dances, and Fantasias by Liz Dilnot Johnson. Waiting while my cello rings for a very long time. So I have two more pieces, and I think that they hit the outer ends maybe of the emotional content of this program. I'm going to play the most gorgeous, saddest one, most emotionally deep one, followed by the most rock and roll one. So that's what we have coming up here. The next thing I'm going to play is by a French composer named Monique Gabus. And similar to Imogen Holst, first composer, she was trained in composition for her schooling, but ended up not really doing a lot of composition until maybe later in her life. She did study composition at the Paris Conservatoire. She studied with Olivier Messiaen, one of the great 20th century French composers, if not the great. I don't want to put quality on it. One of the great. But she was a very respected teacher of composition in Paris. She passed away in 2011. In 1997, she wrote this piece. This piece was written after her friend Anne-Marie Atzambre died. It is called Déploration pour une amie défunte, which means a lamentation for a deceased friend. And I think it's very romantic, very, very beautiful, and a lot of, you can tell how much she loved her friend from this piece. And it uses the voicing on the cello, I think, really, really well. The little bits of things that sound more contemporary are that there's an sort of asymmetrical meter. The meter changes a bunch, so it leaves the phrases feeling slightly lopsided, but I think in a really pleasant way. This is Déploration pour une amie défunte by Monique Gabus. I'm going to tune first, hang on. I think all the music on today's concert really deserves to be in the standard repertoire. That one especially is just sort of breathtaking even to play. Okay, so for the next piece, so I promised you rock and roll. You're gonna get it. I'm putting my pickup on my cello, and I don't like to play with it on there because it kind of dampens the sound. The pickup is something that makes your cello be electric, so I can plug it into an amplifier. It is this one that I have clamps onto the string. A lot of times you have to do some kind of fastening it onto the tail piece kind of deal. They're somewhat invasive in any case. So mine has little screws, clamps onto the strings. And the reason I'm putting this on is because the next piece I'm going to play is for cello and loop pedal. And the loop pedal is an electronic device that you have to be electrified to do this. You have to be plugged into an amplifier. That is a repeater. So however the phrase length is that you set down, it will play it on a loop and repeat it over and over. And you can do a lot of different things with it. You can vary the length of the loop and how often it repeats, etc. So I have my let's see, what am I doing here? I've got this clamped on, and then the actual pickup is a thing that goes on my bridge with sticky stuff. And some pickups affixed to the bridge a little bit more permanently if you're someone who does a lot of improv, a lot of work with an amplifier, and I am not one of those people. I am someone who bought a loop pedal last year, and I'm super excited to get to play another piece with loop pedal. This is going to be Swerve by Jessica Meyer. Jessica Meyer is, excuse me, I have to fuss with pedals while I'm talking. Jessica Meyer is a violist and composer. She's a wonderful violist. She's a teacher and educator. She does lots of workshops, but she's really gaining a lot of fame and renown right now as a composer. She has many works being performed all over the place this year. And so I'm not going to give you a list of those. You can go look her up if you'd like. This piece was written or published, at least the date on it is March 1st, 2016. So I was really thrilled to discover that this is the 6th anniversary of this piece. And I don't know if she put a March 1st date on it because it's Women's History Month, but I'm going to say she did, and that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So I'm really happy to present this. Also, the other reason that I kind of think that maybe this was a Women's History Month piece is because of what she wrote about the piece. She wrote, Swerve is about women making a conscious effort to get everything grooving the way it should, in balance with all the feelings and responsibilities that are unique to us. In essence, that movement when you get your swerve on. This piece is dedicated to the women who will find their courage to be their most empowered selves, and the men who stand by them that have decided not to regard them with fear, but instead with awe and appreciation. This is Swerve by Jessica Meyer. Sadly, nothing happened. This is so sad. Hold on. Guess what? I did all the things except I didn't plug my cello in. So I'm going to do the whole thing again so that I get a good run at this. It's technology. I have all these notes to myself about making sure, I better turn the amp off. I have all these notes to myself about making sure all my lights are on, all my pedals are cleared. Didn't plug the cello in, so we're going to do that again. Take 2. Okay, all my lights are on. My cello's plugged in. I'm not very good at all the technology, but I'm going to do this whole thing again so that I get a good run on the whole thing. Okay. That was a lot of noise. I think that was really fun. My heart is now beating. Sorry for the mess up at the beginning, but that was fun, and I really like getting to use all of my electronic equipment. I think that's a really fantastic piece, and I celebrate all the women all the time, all the years, all the days of the year, but especially pay attention to the women in your life this month. And all you women, let's stay strong, let's do our thing, keep our swerve on. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to look, before I turn this thing off, I'm going to just look at a couple comments. Oh, hi friends, hi, the loop pedal is so cool, Shelley says. Okay, oh yeah, I know the State of the Union address was going on at the same time, and you know, you choose what to, there's so many things, it's also Mardi Gras, so I mean, there are things all over in the world, but luckily this is going to be recorded and available to watch at any point. But thank you so much for checking in and listening. Bye.